make sure you stretch off. It's like I think after any activity, people always have this thing of, I haven't stretched off today. I need to start stretching off after a session. And when they feel sore, they will automatically, a lot of people go to the whole thing of, I haven't been stretching off. That's why. They'll blame it because they haven't stretched off. That is why they're now feeling sore or they've got an injury after their session. And this doesn't seem to go away. Once again, all I'll say is if you want to do it and it makes you feel good, do what you want. Okay, but we're going to go through some stuff now, which might save you some time after your session. And then we're going to go on to the end about mobility and flexibility, because as someone said in the comments earlier, they do it as a sort of a separate routine after their workout. Because some people, it's just convenient. If they're already in the gym, they might just think after their workout, you know what, I'm already here, there's some mats over there, I can go do some stretching. But now what we are going to do is we're going to break it down into different categories to whether or not stretching afterwards has got any meaningful benefits. We'll start with DOMS, so delayed onset muscle soreness, so the thing we're speaking about, when you feel super sore after a session, the next day, the subsequent days, whatever. And we've spoken about this a few times, haven't we, Tom, how DOMS is quite it's a funny old thing, isn't it? It's very difficult to pinpoint the cause of it.
Actual root cause. Best way I can simplify is when you usually do something that your body is not yet adapted to. So that could be through various mechanisms. That could be through the load. So you've not, squatted or deadlifted or, or ran a certain distance. You've not ran a certain distance, or you've not squatted or deadlifted a certain weight before. So
a new training stimulus.
Different rep range. It could be a multitude of things. It could be a simple a variation. You might be deadlifting left, right, and centre, but you might have simply changed up to stiff-legged deadlifts or a Romanian deadlift. And just by changing it up a little bit, it's a new form of stimulus. But, the body does adapt over time. And it gets less.
Does tend to get less, yeah.
But stretching is usually the quick fix, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we actually look at a 2011 Cochrane Library review on this, we spoke about Cochrane Library's pretty heavy hitters in this space, and essentially the evidence from a randomised studies suggests that muscle stretching, whether conducted before, after, or before and after exercise, does not produce clinically important reductions in delayed onset muscle soreness in healthy adults. Right, Tom?
No, sorry, mate. I was having a cheeky vape and I thought I'd be sneaky and blow it just near the fin, but instead it came through the other side. It looked like the microphone was on fire, and while you was reading I was trying to waft it away.
There's me trying to spit absolute Cochrane knowledge, and there's you just fucking vaping away from.
I was literally spitting fire. Look, let's see if I can do it again.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, must be.
See that?
Cool.
Yeah,
that is pretty good.
Literally spitting fire here.
Don't
Bill.
break your mic, mate. Fucking hell.
Sorry, mate.
Jesus.
But the thing with stretching, look, in regards to the context of DOMS, it might feel nice. I mean, when we kind of talk about pain, etc., we kind of know that, just simply changing the stimuli, like when you stub your toe, first thing you do is you grab your foot. Why? We're not promoting blood flow or doing anything crazy with it. It's just a simple case of, let me change the stimulus. If you've got a sore leg, you rub it, stuff like that. So in that case, if you've got sore quads and you stretch out your quads, you can change the stimulus. So acutely, it might just feel nicer. I mean, don't get me wrong, stretching can be painful and tender, but simply changing that stimulus is sometimes pleasant. Sensation and pain, etc., and even pleasure, it's a really, really weird thing to explain. But has it got any meaningful effects? No, I don't think so. Well, it's definitely not a be-all, end-all cure.
No, especially if we look at that review there. I mean, if you are someone who is constantly feeling DOMS, even if you are stretching as well, you probably want to start looking at your, as Tom said, your load management, your program variables, your nutrition, your sleep, because that's the area.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because I know I sent you a text earlier, but basically a mate of mine came into the gym today and her lifestyle is hectic and she's very active. And she was talking about how a sports masseuse at work, and it's always fucking sports masseuses, isn't it? Some of them. How this individual was saying to her, it's because you're not stretching. Stretching is extremely important, etc., etc. Now, the problem with having this narrative of, it's because you've not stretched, stretching is important. Why haven't you stretched? Well, straight away we've kind of given that. And this is actually a term she said to me. She said they planted that seed in my head. So straight away, your attention is being focused on something that is probably, less to do with why you're sore or in pain, etc.
Yeah.
Now, if you was constantly sore to the point where it was a problem, yeah, as you said, I'd rather be focused on the things that probably are having more of an impact. So your load management. And when we talk about load management, we're not talking about just the actual load you're squatting with.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about loads in your lifestyle, your stressors, you know, your nutrition, your sleep, etc. Have you had an argument with your partner? You know, has she thrown a plate at your head again for, you know, leaving the shoes in the doorway? You know, and other non-specific stuff.
But yeah, stretching isn't a magic cure. That's all I'm saying. That's all we're saying in terms of DOMs anyway. It's not magic. All right, soreness is a very weird and wonderful thing. If you are someone who's feeling sore all the time, yeah, look at those other points.
You probably want to push stretching to the side. If it helps you, okay, but let's actually focus on the things that are more making a more meaningful impact on that soreness, etc.
Yeah. So if we move on from DOMs to reducing injury, because this is another one. If you don't stretch off, you're going to get injured. If you do stretch off, you're going to reduce your risk of injury. So we'll go straight in. There's quite a few papers on this. But there's one that stands out, and that's a 2014 study by Lorison et al. And this basically said this was called The Effectiveness of Exercise Interventions to Prevent Sports Injuries, a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. So they looked at different interventions, basically. And basically, to summarise, stretching did not show any protective effect, while strength training proved highly significant. Sorry, I'll say that again just to make it clear. Stretching did not show any protective effect, while strength training proved highly significant. So that's something that's really important to note there. And this also supports basically our, you know, we constantly bombard you guys with saying doing strength/resistance training is going to improve your quality of life. And this is another thing here which looks at it, you know, it's another sort of tick in the box there saying, look, we're seeing protective qualities from this type of training. Whereas stretching, obviously in this situation, this episode specific, didn't really do anything to reduce your chance of injury.
I mean, they actually did summarise at the end, strength training reduced sports injuries to less than 1/3, and overuse injuries could be almost halved.
That's massive, isn't it?
Awesome.
That's huge. That's very significant, yeah. So it's another reason to get out there, and this is why we always push it. It doesn't matter who you are, age, gender, etc. Strength training is for everyone, and it can make a big difference to your quality of life. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pick up some bars. Pick up some bars, bend some bars, do some damage, right?
It's not that we're trying to demonise stretch or anything like that, but I'd rather people focus their time on things where you can get more worthwhile health benefits and performance benefits.
And it's not even just our bias saying this, because obviously you could say we're biased towards it, but we're bringing the data. The data is also supporting our biases. It's not like we're just saying it because we want you to do.
I mean, look, I static stretch sometimes, but I do it usually during downtimes, and I don't do it because I'm like thinking,
which we're going to come on to, which we are going to talk about this. There is scenarios where me and Tom both do static stretching, yeah, for sure. There's also another paper, Tom, I want to go into. Now, this one, if you are a regular listener, you will remember this because you will cast your mind back to the recovery series. And this was a 2018 meta-analysis that compared a wide range of recovery methods. Now, this is why we pretty much use this a lot in our recovery series. But this one included a whopping 99 studies. So it's a pretty big boy. On this paper, guys, if you we'll have it linked down in the show notes, of course. But basically, in regards to injury prevention, stretching was like the worst one. Out of there was like 9 or 10 different recovery interventions, and stretching came out on worse, actually doing anything meaningful. So yeah, not ideal. And then we've also, there's more here, guys, we're not messing around. So Big Greg Lehman, I know you're one of your, you love him, yeah? Big Greg.
Gregory.
You actually sent me this really good little article, actually. If you want to look at this article, guys, it's packed full of citations as well, so it's really good to sort of get yourself into. And this looks at static stretching and injury risk in runners. This is obviously very specific to runners now, which is interesting. And it's not good news, basically. It's better nail that one. But what I will do is
usually static stretching and running almost go hand in hand, don't they?
Like that microphone was just then.
I know.
But yeah, they normally go hand in hand, right? And yeah. In that article, it basically sort of debunks it. There's actually, the good thing about this article, I'll go through it now just because while you're listening, so you actually have to go do double handle stuff. But he did actually give some advice on injuries, which might be worth noting in a runner situation. So if I just pull up this magic little picture, he's basically gone down that there's 2 general ways to prevent injuries. Number 1, decrease the tissue load. So load management, so decrease load to stress. So avoid too much too soon following a progressive volume/intensity running plan. We've pretty much said earlier, if you go out and if you've never run before, you go do a 10-mile run, you can spend an hour doing static stretching afterwards. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, you've done a 10-mile run when you've never run before.
And do you know what? The same could go for actual static stretching as well, where you don't want to do too much too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when you get people that actually force you into some seriously horrendous positions. I mean, you look at like I know it's going to sound like a really dramatic example. I'm going to give you the worst extreme example for this, but it's still an example. And that's when you look at like the training for like the Shaolin monks, etc.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever actually seen videos of them training and what they do to the children, etc.? It's pretty much child abuse, where they like stand on their legs in the splits. Like, this child is obviously not capable yet to be doing these, to be stretching at that range, but they're standing on their legs, and like these kids are fucking crying.
You see their credentials, mate. They got level 3 PTs there, have they?
What, the Shaolin monks?
Yeah, they're level 3 qualified. Not that I make a fucking difference anyway, but.
There goes our Communist Party funding.
Yeah, I know, right? Fuck's sake. We go back to preventing injuries with Big Greg. This one's interesting, Tom. I think you'll like this. In number 2, he said, ignore number 1. If you are constantly in pain, then try a different program. That's interesting, because sometimes you're just on a shit program. There are shit PTs out there. Yeah. Could be a shit running program.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right? And then number 3, this is quite interesting. Vary your running surfaces and routes. Because, you know, you'll hear that stereotypical thing if you're pavement bashing 7 days a week.
Oh, you know, the worst is, especially where I live in Ruislip, where you've got constant drop curbs every 5 feet.
Yeah, and you have to, because that's that constant change in elevation. Jesus. It's only a small bit, but it's a constant change, isn't it? Yeah. But that's a good point to make, because change it, for example, if you only ever run in a straight line on concrete, if you ever have to do anything differently, potentially, like, let's say you've run straight line on concrete for 10 miles, you've built up to 10 miles in straight line in concrete. If you've then not varied any sort of variance, then you then have to do 10 miles, but it's cross country.
Where suddenly you're undulating terrain,
so
you know.
You're going to run into a few issues, aren't you? So
running on grass and trails and running on, like, concrete, 2 totally different things.
And the next one he says, just sort of comes back to something we said earlier, really helping with our bias here, Tommy, is increase your tissue strength. And he goes strength training, so basically your whole body. So runners sometimes might think, oh, you know, they might just do, I don't know, we'll focus on one thing, but you want to work on whole body strength. This one's interesting. Treat existing injuries. Unresolved injuries correlate with future injury.
But isn't one of like the biggest factors for injury is actually previous injury? Injury or history of injury. That's not saying that obviously to go completely sedentary and just rest up, but train. So once again, we're talking about load management here, but you can train around injuries at a dose that is appropriate for you at the time. And, you know, injuries can dictate kind of what dose you should be training at.
But yeah, I'll have that article linked down in the show notes, guys. If you want to have a look at that for some of those points, if you've probably forgot them already now. I'm fully aware of that. So, yeah,
Go and have a look at that.